Welcome back to another episode of Unapologetically Us. It is your host, John Shirley King, back with another episode, and I'm so excited to be back. Um, this topic today is going to get a little juicy, it's going to get a little exciting. It's one that I feel like I talk about all the time, and now I'm sharing it with the world, and I'm sharing my thoughts and everything that I feel and think, and I'm finally expressing it, and I'm really excited. I had did a poll on my Instagram asking you guys, what you wanted me to talk about or me and my guests to talk about. And so I can definitely do a part two with some guests if you guys would like to hear that. So please let me know in the comments or on the Instagram page at unapologetically us with two I always forget what they are. Two underscores. If you guys would like a part two with some guests, but I decided to do this one solo for the first time because I think it's just an interesting topic, and I feel like I constantly have thoughts about it, and I really just wanted to talk about it. So I'm excited. But today we are going to be discussing relationships. We're going to get into the nitty gritty, the entire concept of it, and I'm going to try my best to just, you know, give my thoughts on it. Give my thoughts on relationships, things I wish I knew before I got into them, things I wish people gave me advice on. And just give you everything I got in terms of all my knowledge about it. Disclaimer though, I'm definitely not a professional when it comes to love. I think there really is no right or wrong way. I don't think that, you know, anybody's story is the same, so everyone goes through things differently. This is just merely things that I've learned along the way so far, and I hope that, it's relatable and that people can feel like they can um, see themselves in my stories or, feel like they have a support system. And yeah, I also want to say I'm very grateful to everyone who has been listening, to everyone who has reached out to me, who have said that, these podcasts have been helping them. And I just want you guys to know that it's made me so happy to know that, my stories have really touched your guys' lives, and feeling like you have a support system, feeling like you have someone telling your story, and me being able to be that voice for you guys. It's like the craziest thing ever. So I'm so grateful, and so happy that you guys have been liking the podcast. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. Please make sure that you guys are subscribing to the Unapologetically Us YouTube channel, and also make sure that you guys are following the Unapologetically Us Instagram page, which is at Unapologetically Us with two underscores. And yeah, we're just gonna get into this episode. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for listening, and let's just get right into it. Let's talk about it. So one thing I want to say before I start is that I have been a hopeless romantic my entire life. I think the idea of love makes me happy. Seeing people in love, being in love. Um, Love is just like one of the greatest feelings to feel. And, you know, growing up, I watched so many rom coms. I think to this day I still do. It's like my favorite movie genre ever. But, movies like The Notebook, Titanic, The Vow, like Nicholas Sparks literally has ingrained romantic comedies in my brain. So I have grown up to just love the over dramatic love stories where they just give like these huge confessions of love, writing letters, and kind of dramatizing the idea of what it's like to be in love. And when you watch it, it makes you want that to be your reality. You look at these characters and you're like, oh my god, I want that, and this is how it's supposed to be. And if it's not like that, then it's not real love. And I grew up watching these images of people, going above and beyond for each other and wanting that for myself. And then I grew up and I was like, love is not like this at all. Like, this is just, now I understand why it's just a movie or it's in a book. And to be honest, like, I was disappointed. I was like, my expectations were so high, and for it to not be like that, I'm like, oh wow, like, I'm just one of those people who just is never gonna find love. And what I had to realize is I couldn't compare real life to a movie, right? Like we have people who write scripts for this, and we have people who do production and like these movies to sell it, and it works because people go home and are like, okay, now I'm gonna find that. Um, Not realizing that, you know, it's a movie. Like this is made up, it's a fairy tale, and that it's just not realistic. So going into my journey through like the crushes and the first boyfriends and the puppy love and things like that, I was a very shy kid. You know, if I had a crush, like I kept it to myself completely. Like I never would let anyone know. I was so shy. I wasn't into, you know, like being bold enough to talk to them or anything. Like I was just very kept it to myself. And I had been like that. I think I've been like that for a long time. Like I think that's a part of me. Like I always, still to this day, get a little nervous or, you know, get scared if I were to ever, you know, like anyone. That's just like how I am. Um, but I think especially during that time, I had crushes, but I just never acted on them because was just I just willingly and knowingly knew that I would never live up to the movie hype or expectation that I had in my brain. And then I got into high school. It was kind of like the same thing, except I would like start talking a little more, and I just felt that constant comparison of like, you're not like how you are in the movies. Like this is not, you're not giving me what I need. Like, you know, setting these like unrealistic expectations. Um, in high school, that's when I started like dating and like going out, and um, it was like a frustrating time for me, especially with high school, you know, the connotations of like sex and the connotation of like this is what's normal in relationships, and I felt like I was so behind compared to everybody else in high school because I was still a virgin and wasn't doing that. And you know, it was very much like, you know, Holy Mary, like Mother Mary like type thing. So um I felt like I just didn't belong when it went to like the dating scene. And then I also was the person looking for like a committed relationship. Um and other people just wanted to talk to other people and wanted to, you know, like do their own thing. And, you know, most high school boys weren't into like being in a committed relationship. So it just like never worked. And it was like frustrating because I'm like, I keep putting myself out there and I'm like, you know, what am I doing wrong? And it was just like one of those things to where it was just like, I just give up. Right. And then, got into one of my first serious relationships, like out of high school. Um, and it was like one of those relationships that was a friendship first. So you think like, oh, like it's gonna work and it's gonna be great and it's gonna be like, you know, we're friends first. So like, um, they already understand who I am. They know who I am. Like it's just like an extension of what our friendship already was, and we, you know, we're together and everything's going great. And then it's like, boom, cheated on. And then it's like, oh God, like where is this coming from? How did this happen? And then what I found myself doing was like trying to pinpoint things about me that was wrong, like trying to make it seem like it was my fault, you know, instead of blaming him or instead of making him take responsibility for what he did. And like me trying to figure out, you know, if I did this, maybe he wouldn't have done it. If I would have looked this way, if I would have acted this way, if I would have paid more attention, you know, and like trying to make excuses for his actions and trying to make him feel like it wasn't his fault. And in reality, looking back, it like kind of made me mad, like thinking about it, because it's like the fact that I could sit here and try to act like it was my fault for something that he chose to do, and trying to figure out what was wrong with me when in reality it wasn't me who was the problem, you know. And so where I'm going with this to start off with, right, and I'm speaking especially to my younger listeners, my beautiful boys and girls on here who are in high school right now, who are, you know, in whether you're in a relationship or, you know, even if you're not young, everybody who's listening right now. First, I want to say especially if you've ever gotten cheated on, to never blame yourself for another person's actions. Like, they chose to be I don't even know what the word, like, they just chose to cheat, whatever that looks like, whether they, had sex with someone else, whether they were talking to someone else, whether, doing things behind your back. That was their choice, right? Like, never feel like it's your fault or that you did something to drive them away. I think that we need to hold the people we love accountable for what they did. I think it's time to stop making excuses for what they did. I think it's okay for you to be hurt by what they did. Like, to let those feelings really sink in, to let them really just stay with you for a second, because it's a really big form of betrayal to have somebody that you love do something like that to you, and it can change you. For me, it made me self-conscious. It made me feel like you know my worth wasn't as high as I thought it was. It made me feel insecure. It made me feel not good enough. It makes you start to question your self-value, and how it makes you change how you view yourself. And so for me, I had lost any amount of self-confidence that I had, right? And so after that relationship ended, it was very much like, I'm done with men. I'm done trying to, be with people. I'm just done, right? Like, and I went through that. And then fast forward probably like a month and a half later, boom, end up in another talking stage. And it's like, okay, like, like, here we are, right? Like, here we are in a talking stage. And with this one, it was just like out of nowhere. Like, it was like out the blue, like, completely blindsided me. Didn't expect it, and they always say, like, the best things happen when you least expect it. But this one was like, couldn't even explain to you how, just like, how much of a surprise it was. And it was great. Like, at the beginning, it was, again, building off of friendship, and it scared me because it was like, it felt like it was like the same cycle. Like, we started as friends and we're cool and we're like figuring it out, and like we're getting to know each other, and like, everything's great. But it was scary because after coming off of being cheated on like that, it scares you and it makes you question, will that happen again? And then in the back of my mind, my walls were like completely up, and they were completely, I was just guarded, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't feel that pain, because it hurt so much to give your everything to someone only for it to be not enough. Like, getting cheated on, it's just showing you like, oh, no matter what you did, it just wasn't enough for me. Um, and that I didn't care about you enough to think about how my actions could have hurted you. Not to say that people don't make mistakes, and I'm not saying this to say I'm like this perfect person, but in reality, everything we do is a choice. And that's something that I've learned along the way, is that people choose to do what they want, and sometimes people are so selfish they don't think about how their actions can cause so much pain to other people. But this relationship, so, again, the whole friendship thing, and this was one of the relationships where you just fall like head over heels, like in love so fast, like, and you get consumed in it, and it's like this amazing whirlwind of like, you feel like you're in the movie. You feel like you have this romantic fairy tale, and you're like, oh my god, like, this is why I had to get cheated on, so I can be placed into this relationship, because this is like the life-changing one where like everything makes sense now, and you realize you had to go through everything just to get to this point in your life. And then the honeymoon phase starts to end, right? Like, it starts to go away after a couple months, and then real life hits, and boom, problem after problem after problem. And then you get so like wrapped up and overwhelmed and like caught up in it, and it's like suffocating you because you don't know what to do, and you don't know how to handle everything being thrown at you. And in this relationship in particular, I feel like I was so consumed and dependent on it because I looked to this relationship as a form of my happiness, right? Like, not to say that a relationship is not supposed to make you happy, but it was my reason for being happy at that time. It was the only way that I was able to feel happy. And that person was the only way that I could feel happy, which is like really unhealthy because like you should never have to depend on someone to give that to you. Like they should only keep adding to your happiness but not be the reason why you're happy. And as we just had problem after problem after problem, it really like took a turn because it was showing me how much dependency I had on this person, how broken I was, how much I was leaning on them to be everything that I couldn't be for myself. And in realizing that, you know, it made me see how unhealthy that codependency was. Um, and then again, like we go through like our own set of problems and then the same thing happens. And it's like the same cycle just repeated itself. Um, and it's like heart shattering because you go through something for the first time and then to have it happen again um, in like a short amount of time from when it first happened. And then it really like, now it like tricks you because now you're like, okay, is it really me? Like, am I really the problem? And it makes you feel in a way worthless. Like it makes you feel like, okay, no one loves me, no one cares about my emotions. You know, you feel used, you feel like a dumbass, you feel like you're putting everything out there for people who don't really give a shit about you. You know, sorry for all the cussing, but it's just like, hey, like you feel like whatever you do will never be enough for anyone. um I think a lot of times people stay in relationships, people stay because they are afraid to be alone, because they are afraid to keep getting hurt. They are afraid to keep putting themselves out there. They get comfortable. They feel like, okay, this person has already gotten to know me. They've already seen my good and bad sides. They know me. I'm just going to stay because trying to meet someone else and go through it again is just too much. And we stay on unhealthy things because we convince ourselves that we can fix it. We convince ourselves that we can change a person, that we can change a situation, that we can change, you know, we can change everything so that it can just be perfect for us. And in reality, it's not true, right? Like, we have to understand that people will change only if they want to change. That's number one. We can't go into a relationship trying to think that we can fix someone, especially when they don't want to be fixed, or especially when they feel like there's nothing to be fixed. And I think that a lot of times that's where the disappointment comes in when we realize that there is no change because we had our hopes up so high. But if you feel like you have to change a person, or you feel like they are not willing to make certain changes to be with you, then that's not your person. It's not who you're supposed to end up with, regardless of how much you want a person. And that's something that I learned. Just because you love or you want someone so badly doesn't mean they're always good for you. Doesn't mean that they're the one for you, that they're meant to be in your life. You can love people and realize that it's time to let them go. Or you can realize that they're not meant to be in your life in that specific way. Like, they could be in your life as a friend or as, like, you know, someone who was a part of your story, but that doesn't mean that they have to keep being in your life just because you care about them or because you guys have went through so much stuff together, you know? And a lot of times we have these unhealthy habits of trying to keep people in our lives because we don't want to let go of memories. We don't want to let go of the people that we think they are. This, like, illusion of, like, who this person can become if they do X, Y, and Z. And in reality, it's up to that person to do those things. If they don't want to do them, you can't force them to do it. You can't force people to be the versions that you want them to be. They have to want that for themselves. They're going to have to want to make that change for themselves. Another thing that I've learned is to never and I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna say it again. Never chase, never beg, never never beg anyone to be in your life. Never chase someone to where you have to feel like you have to put so much of your pride aside or so much of your morals or whatever it is aside for them to be in your life. Any person who wants to be in your life will be in your life. And that's just what it is. Regardless of what they say, if they want to, they would. Right? And I'm speaking specifically to all the women and all the ladies listening right now, because I think a lot of times we are the ones who chase, right? We are the ones who continuously go after men who make it abundantly clear that they don't want to put in the effort to be with us. I don't know, I forgot who I was talking to, but they always said that men are like hunters, right? Like they go after what they want. They go after things that they are willing to put effort into. So in reality, like if you're the one continuing to chase somebody who has made it clear that they don't want to be chased, like just like let it go. You know, because if they want to, they will. If they want to text you, if they want to call you, if they want to make it work, they will. They will put in that effort to where you don't have to second guess or question if they do. Anytime you have to question anything, that's you already have your answer. And it's like being okay with hearing the answer you don't want. Like sometimes we have to realize what we want for ourselves is not what's best for us, and that's okay. You know, whether that's us being in a relationship with a specific person, whether that's us, you know, like having to let go of certain people. It's okay because like even if we wanted it and we don't get it, we have to realize that it was for a reason. Another thing that I will say, when I hear a lot of times people say this idea of like relationships and perfect timing, this idea that like there's going to be this perfect time when you're going to be with someone. And that also is not realistic. I feel like in life, we are always going to go through something. We will always have a problem. We will always have something that we need to fix. There is no such idea. There's no such idea as perfect timing. Like, perfect timing just doesn't exist. It's like this made up story that we tell ourselves when either we're scared to love, when someone just doesn't want to be with you, but then, you know, they somehow are still trying to keep you in their lives. And that's another thing that I want to point out too. When someone knows how good of a person you are, but they just know they can't get their shit together, they do this thing where like they keep you to where you feel like they want to be with you, but in reality they just don't want anyone else to have you. And it's like so toxic and it's so narcissistic to even think that that's a thing, but like to make you feel like they want you, but in reality they just can't, they can't like picture you being with someone else. And it doesn't make sense because it's like if you got your stuff together, hey, like you could have been with me, but it's like they know deep down they're not willing to put the work into themselves, but they still don't want to see you with someone else. So like they do this thing where they try to like keep you, and they try to like make it seem like if you just give them time that they'll be ready. And my advice for that is, you know, anybody who really wants something will go after what they want. So never feel like you're not doing enough. If you're putting in effort and you're not getting effort back, let that just be your answer right there. You know what I'm saying? Like let that be everything you need to know. Another thing I will say is that no one is ever too busy to see you, to be around you, to talk to you. Everybody is busy in life. We understand that. We get that. But there is 24 hours in a day. We only sleep for 8. You usually only go to work for 8 to 10 hours. So you're telling me in the span of 24 hours you don't have a little bit of time to talk on the phone, to go out to eat, to like, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody has time. So don't let that be an excuse either, because, you know, I've heard plenty of those excuses a bunch of times. And also this idea that we're going to get into right quick, because this was also asked, seeing each other only at night. Now, personally, I will say I didn't understand this until I understood it, put it at that. But it's just like, it just doesn't make sense to me, right? Like, everyone has different ideas of what they want in life. And when I look at my life, I definitely, in the future would like to be married and to have a family and to break this idea that relationships have to be toxic in order for it to work. And I want that. But you're not going to get that just seeing each other at night. Regardless of what anybody else says, you don't get that at just seeing each other at night. Like, if someone wants to spend time with you, they're going to spend time with you. So whether that's like going out during the day. And when I mean night though, like I mean like late night. Like I mean like night. Right? So like anybody who really wants to be with you will try to schedule stuff not just at night because you know what that leads to. Like everybody knows, all the grown-ups out here, you know what that is. So like I would say understand people's intentions. Understand what they really want from you, right? Like words say one thing, actions say another thing. And we're just going to leave it at that. We're going to keep rocking with that. Um Other things I would say when it comes to relationships is to never settle. Never feel like you have to um go against everything that you want or change what you want just to say you have someone. I think a lot of times we get, this idea of like our standards being too high. Now, if you're asking for like a neurosurgeon, astronaut, who like owns a yacht, like, those are a little dramatic. But never feel like you have to lower your standards for everyone because somebody's I can't, somebody's I won't, somebody's I'm not ready will be another person's I will be I have been waiting for you. There's someone out there for everybody. And if one person is not doing it for you, shit, go find somebody who will. Like, go find that person who will check all those boxes without you even having to ask, who will give you that love, who will give you that affection, that will give you that time. I've seen so many times, and I've been in so many different talking stages and relationships where I felt like I was stuck and that I had to stay and that I had to wait till they got their stuff together. In reality, it's not true. Like, you at any time can leave, and if you know you're not getting what you deserve, go find someone who will give that to you or give that to yourself, right? Like, stop depending on relationships to give you what you can give yourself. The important thing, and what I've stressed so many times on these episodes, is to put yourself first. You can give yourself love, you can give yourself compassion, you can give yourself respect, trust, you can give yourself all of that. And in reality, you need to give it to yourself first because you can't expect someone to love you if you don't even know what you need in order to feel loved. You have to really understand and date yourself first. You have to understand who you are. You have to understand the things that you've gone through. You have to heal from them. You have to get the lessons that you've learned and you take them so that by the time you are ready to get into a relationship and you meet someone who is ready to do the same thing, you guys would have come together. You understand yourselves to where you can tell them, hey, like, this is who I am. This is what I've been through. This is what I will not tolerate. This is what I don't want. So that there's no confusion, that there's no brokenness, like you're not trying to heal each other, but you've already healed and now you're ready to take that next step. And I think that's what it is. It's all inner work. It starts from yourself. It starts with the fact that you have to understand everything that you've been through and everything that, hurts you, everything that makes you upset, everything that you don't want, everything that you do want. And to be honest and realistic with yourselves. And to realize that that's the only way you're going to get it is if you're honest and you're realistic and you put your foot down and, you're telling yourself this is what I will not tolerate and this is what I will tolerate and this is what I will handle and won't handle. I find like a lot of times people are unhappy in their relationships because they feel like they have to stay out of comfortability, out of this idea that, you'll never find anyone else or anything. Even if you don't find anyone else, be okay just to be with yourself. Be okay with the fact that regardless of whoever is going to walk in and out of your life, you have yourself at the end of the day. Because once you lose yourself, you've lost everything. You've lost the self-respect, you've lost the self-worth, you've lost the self-dignity, you've lost self-love. And once you lose that, that's when it becomes unhealthy, because now you have no choice but to depend on other people. And then they'll feel like they can walk all over you, they feel like they can do anything, they can hurt you, and that's where it becomes very toxic and just very unhealthy mentally and emotionally. So I would say, please make sure that you are taking time to date yourselves, to understand yourselves, to understand everything that you've been through, to learn the lessons. I will also say red flags are a big thing. And a lot of times we act colorblind, we act like we don't see them, we act like, they don't exist, but they exist. And red flags and your gut and your intuition, it's all real, it's all true. And I would just say listen to them to understand that they are there for a reason. They are flashing in your face for a reason. And once you start noticing them, you gotta, you gotta go. Like, you need to have enough respect for yourself, enough love for yourself to realize when something is not good enough for you anymore. You have to realize that you go through, and this is what I like always questioned, of like why I kept getting into these situations that kept hurting me, that kept giving me so much pain, that kept making me feel like I wasn't enough. But it's only because I was allowing it to happen. I was allowing myself to be in these situations with people to where I gave them power to hurt me, where I gave them the power to make them feel as though they had control over my emotions, and to make them feel like it was okay for them to treat me like that. And you don't really understand that until you're honest with yourself, until you're truthful with yourself about the simple facts of how much you sweep things under the rug, how much you try to act like things are okay when you know that they're not. I would say listening to your heart is not just about being with people that you love, but listening when you're hurting, listening to your heart when it's had enough, listening to your heart when like there's only so much you can take from a specific person or from a specific relationship to where you're just done, right? And like knowing that it's okay to walk away. Like when it's becoming toxic and it's not good for you anymore, you have every right to walk away. And to not feel like you're going to be judged by people, to not feel like, people are going to say things about you. So what? Regardless of what anyone says, everyone goes through their own crap. Everybody has things in life that they deal with. Most people just don't want to talk about them, and that's why it can be so unhealthy sometimes. But you being strong enough to say that you don't want to be in a situation no more that has been very unhealthy for you and toxic, and that you're trying to be better for yourself, no one can really talk about it. And even if they do, oh well, like, nobody's perfect and everybody is bound to go through their own experiences. So it's like, don't let others dictate what's best for you, because at the end of the day, only you can dictate that. Um, Another thing that I will say about relationships is that I've heard this idea that, especially for me, I've gotten a lot that like you're young, like you never understand right now, blah blah blah. But I would like to say there are people twice my age who still don't have things figured out, right? Like there is no age limit on love. There's no age limit on wanting to act right for a person. There's no age limit to that. I think it just comes from emotional maturity and realizing what you truly want and understanding what you need in order to get it, right? Like just because you could be 50, 60 years old and still not have the emotional maturity to be in a real relationship. If you haven't healed from your past, if you haven't healed from past relationships, if you haven't healed from that. I think a lot of times we fail to understand that a lot of our relationships don't work because we haven't healed from things, right? So, like, whether that's childhood trauma, whether that's other relationships that have failed us in the past, if we cling on to those things, our relationships are not going to work because we're so hell bent on those things that we can't concentrate on anything else. So that means like you have to come into these relationships already healed from your past. You can't let your past dictate your future, right? Like you cannot control the things that have already happened to you. You cannot change what has already happened. Not to say that you're not allowed to feel any emotions towards it, because it will always stay with you. Your past will always stay with you. But to like not let it consume you anymore, to not let it define you. What I will also say when it comes to past relationships, not comparing, right? Like we have all had relationships that just didn't work out, that have either been toxic, that have either been, just this terrible time. And I will say, a relationship does not have to be hard all the time, or you don't always have to have problems in order for it to work. I think that we get caught up in life that we sometimes try to make big deals out of nothing, or we try to create problems when in reality that's not, like every long lasting relationship that I've seen, it's like it always has to be something toxic that happens in order for them to stay together. And I've realized how unhealthy that is and how much I don't want that. Like there is going to be problems and there's going to be bad things, but it doesn't have to be toxic. Like it doesn't have to be this like gut-wrenching, like hard thing all the time for it to work. And I think once we get out that notion of like it having to be bad before it gets good, when in reality, like, why can't it just be good? And then it'd be like, go through life, but it doesn't have to always start off bad before it gets good. And I think once we realize that, it'll change your perception on what real love looks like. Anyone can say that they love you, but I feel like you will know someone loves you by how they treat you and how they make you feel. And I think listening to that rather than their words, because anybody can say it, but for someone to really mean it, you never have to question it and you will always feel it. But going back to just knowing your worth, to knowing that you deserve everything that you want, knowing that if one person can't give it to you, someone else will, knowing that it's okay to let go sometimes. Sometimes it's okay to realize that there's an expiration date, that the time is up, that where you were in the beginning is not where you are now. To understand that relationships come and go, that, whether you've been cheated on or some form of infidelity or anything, it's not your fault. To not blame yourself, to not feel like you were the reason, that you could have done something different for a different outcome. If someone wants to cheat, they're going to cheat, right? Like they're going to do whatever they want. You can't control anyone. You can't make someone be someone that they're not. And if it happens to you, it's gonna suck, but at the end of the day, you don't have to stand for it. You don't have to act like it's okay just because you care about that person. You can still care about someone and realize that, hey, they're just not, they're not right for you anymore. They're not meant to be in your life. And that's not to say that they're terrible people, because people make mistakes, but realizing that, your self-worth is more important than anybody else's. The way you choose to accept things and what you find tolerable is really up to you. But that doesn't mean you have to just allow people to walk all over you and to continue to hurt you, and make you feel less than. Not for anyone. And you should never feel like that. A piece of advice that I wish I could tell my younger self is that, you are worth it, that you deserve so much, that your heart is so beautiful, so big, and that one day someone is going to love you to the point that it's going to be like the movies, right? But to not settle for someone who just claims that they love you, or to settle for, what's in front of you. And to know that, your relationship with yourself is the most important. And once you realize that, it just makes everything else easier, because putting yourself first, you just allow yourself to not deal with any unnecessary chaos, anything that's not going to bring you peace, anything that's not going to bring you love, anything that's not going to bring you happiness. It just makes everything easier. So my advice out there is just to put yourselves first, to love yourself enough to understand what you deserve, and to not settle for anything less than you deserve. Even when that also can mean like friendships as well. I think we get caught up in toxic friendships, which can be um so unhealthy for us as well. It's like the same thing. And to not, like, not settle for that. You can know people for years, but when they gotta go, they gotta go. Like, it's time. And you outgrow people. And that's the thing, too. You have to be okay with outgrowing people to understand that you are entering a new stage of your life, in which they just don't fit the description, they don't fit the box anymore. And that if you're continuing to grow and you see that they're not trying to grow with you, then you have to cut ties. And not to say that you don't care or love for them anymore, but it's just you guys are on two different wavelengths and just not the same thing anymore, right? So, that was just a mouthful, really touching bases on all that. If you guys would like a part two, I already know people who would be so down to talk about this, so please let me know in the comments or anything if you guys would like to hear it. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for allowing me to continue just to talk about, my story and the stories that I've been through, the lessons I've learned. I'm so grateful. I hope that this was informative. I hope that you guys have learned something, that you guys have, felt a sense of support. And to anyone out there, know that you are loved, you are special, you are appreciated, you are worthy of finding the love that you want. But to also invest in yourself and to realize that, putting yourself first and loving yourself first will set you up for relationships that will make you feel loved, and to not let your past define your present or your future, and to not let someone else's actions break you, but to catapult you into the best version of yourself that you can be, and to forgive, to forgive those people who hurt you, and to just not have any hatred in your heart, but to just really forgive but never forget. And yeah, that's just relationships in a nutshell. That's just everything that I've learned, and I hope that this was just a good little talk or something good for you to listen to tonight. And I hope that you take this and you find what you're looking for, and you find that love within yourself, and that has just changed your entire thoughts on what love and how love is supposed to be. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. I will be back with another podcast coming soon. I'm so excited to keep these podcasts going, and thank you so much for tuning in and listening. I will see you guys on my next episode.